What's going on, everybody? It's Dan, Moonshine the Hillbilly Hellraiser. How you doing? I'm doing all right. I can't really complain. It's my weekend, so I'm just kind of hanging out, hanging and banging at the gym. Today I was pretty much took the day to myself, and one of the main things I did, I went to the movies. What'd I go see? You can read the title. I went to go see Masters of the Universe, the He-Man reboot that just came out. Was put out by MGM, which is now a part of Amazon, which didn't know that, but I don't follow most of that sort of stuff. And when I heard the movie was coming out, I was super excited. I had seen, like, depending on, you spend enough time getting your information online or watching enough shows and podcasts online, it can tend to skew results. So at first, I saw a couple videos where people were talking about it, and it was mixed. And that seems to have been the course that this movie has followed since its release, since it opened up last week. A mixed bag of people with varying degrees of critiques on it and varying degrees of reasons why they have those critiques. But yeah, let me get into this. Uh, First, I'll say that it was really long. It seems to be the case with a lot of movies nowadays. Everything seems to clock in at like 2 hours, a little over 2 hours. I don't know why that is. I don't know why nowadays Hollywood can't make a concise movie. I don't know. Maybe that's something to do with everybody's got ADHD or whatever the hell's going on, but it just seems like every movie is has to be this grandiose epic nowadays when in my opinion that's what's missing from movies nowadays. That solid hour and 15 minute, hour and a half long movie that gets you from bell to bell and doesn't really waste a lot of time. And this actually ties into something I was thinking about. I was going to do an entire video on this concept, but I just figured I'll go for it here. I was watching a bunch of movies a couple weeks ago, a bunch of like old school or classic movies. I watched Tombstone. I watched uh, Dazed and Confused. I watched Flash Gordon. And all of those clocked in at around the 2 hour, a little over the 2 hour mark. And the pacing on them was like, you couldn't even tell. Like they were just so well paced. And it just, the time flew by and it was fun and entertaining. And then I watched Tenacious D Pick a Destiny for whatever reason. And it's 2 hours as well, or close to 2 hours, and it is a slog. And the only part I really wanted to see was the fight with the rock off with the devil. And it was like I ended up walking away from the movie for a while, and I had to come back and just was like, okay, I'll just go watch that clip. But man, it just seems like, and nowadays a lot of movies are like that. They go on forever. They seem to meander and don't really have a point, kind of like this channel. And yeah, man, it can be rough sometimes watching movies. But that said, with the exception of a couple of dull spots here and there, which I would attribute to you get the peaks and the valleys and you're kind of riding the roller coaster of the movie. That's about what it would amount to with this movie. It was long. You could tell that it was long, but beyond that, it wasn't a dull, boring affair. There was lots of there was violence, there was action. It was uh, very campy. I would say this is definitely a love letter to the 80s and that sort of like 80s camp style. I'm sure there's people that are going to be out there that they'll be deconstructing this movie and talking about like, oh, it's a postmodern take on this or that, and deconstructing the whole blah 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 of this and how the movie was always it was always it was always like secretly or ambiguously this or that, and it's like I don't know if I would get into all that, but it's one of those movies where if you grew up like I did, like I even put that back there just for aesthetic purposes, my little collector's case. if you go back deep enough into my channel, you see there's a video where I show off all my action figures. I got a ton of He-Man stuff. I grew up watching He-Man. I loved He-Man when I was a kid. Um, it was always fun. And if you just go into it and shut your brain off and don't try to think too deeply about it, you're going to have a blast because this was a fun movie. It was, like I say, it was very campy, uh, very colorful at times. I heard like I saw a couple of people talk about it. I heard someone say that they spent too much time on Earth because the premise of the story is that Prince Adam, young He-Man, there's a battle in Eternos, in Eternia, battle for Grayskull, Castle Grayskull between Skeletor and his minions versus King Randor and his army. And in the middle of this battle, Adam's mom, the queen, sends him off to a distant land with the Sword of Power, the Sword of Grayskull, and they get the sword away from Skeletor, and they get him away from all the fighting and everything, because at this point in time he's a young kid and he's still kind of dorky and feeble-minded and that sort of thing. So he hasn't really shown any signs of becoming what he'll eventually become in not just the movie, but in the lore of the story itself. Uh, so he, for lack of a better way of describing it, he F's off to Earth. And they didn't really spend a lot of time there. There was a more or less an opening battle scene that kind of set the pace of what you're about to see. They spent a little time there. He's working in just a drab, dull, soulless job where he's constantly daydreaming about Eternia and the Sword of Power and that sort of thing. Eventually, he finds it and he gets his hands on it, and the movie's kind of off to the races from there. I'm trying not to talk too deeply about the movie because I do know people that are still going to see it, so I don't want to like give anything away. Um, as far as the cast, I didn't know a lot of the people outside of Idris Elba. I know who that is. Morena Baccarin, I know who she is. I know she's been in all the Deadpool movies, and she's in a ton of stuff. Uh, but I mostly remember her from the TV show Gotham that was on NBC for a while, and she's great. Very good in the role. I kind of laughed at myself because she had such a small role in this as the sorceress. I kind of figured like, oh, they probably got her for a day and just filmed all of her parts in one day of shooting, and then she took off. Um, Jared Leto, I know him. He's been in a ton of stuff. I don't know if he played Skeletor. I don't know if he was in a suit the entire time, but he did a good role. He really kind of held it down as like the campy figure within the movie. Lots of very ambiguously gay innuendos and stuff like that, like talking about He-Man and his sword and between his muscular thighs and that sort of stuff. It was very odd. And then there was like it was like a mix of like campy cartoon villain and over the top comedy heel sort of. That was kind of like this. It seemed like what they were going for as far as the portrayal of Skeletor. Because there's a couple of times where it's almost like you can tell like he's not as powerful without the help of Evil Lynn, which I think Alison Brie is the name of the actress who did that. Don't know who she is. The guy who played He-Man, I'm going to look up his name real quick because he did a really good job. Nicholas Galitzine, hopefully I'm saying that right. And then while I'm here, Camila Mendez, I don't know who she is. She played Tila. Who else was in here? A guy by the name of James Purefoy. He played King Randor. Charlotte Riley played Queen Marlena. Johannes Hawker Johansson played Fisto. I don't know the guy who played Ram Man. They had Trapjaw in there. Triclops. Mechanic was another one. Trying to think who else. There was there was Beastman character, but I think that that was mostly CGI. Spikor was another character that they had from the show. There was a couple appearances towards the end of the movie that I'm not going to spoil of characters that were in it. They did a CGI battle cat with Cringer, which was pretty cool. Um, and yeah, overall, I would say that it is. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, again, it was they had. Now I'm thinking about Brian May did some of the score for the album or for the album. He did some of the score for the movie, which is really cool because he did stuff. Queen did stuff with Flash Gordon, and they also did stuff with Highlander, which I think they brought back one of the songs that was in Highlander. And so lots of allusions to that. And I would say, honestly, I mentioned Flash Gordon earlier. This is probably, especially with Brian May's help with the score of the movie, I think that this is probably very much in line with that type of film. Like if you liked Flash Gordon, the 80s one, then there is no other one, but you would like this movie. I really think it falls into that line of that. Again, I keep using the word, but it's appropriate. That campy kind of style with the very colorful sets and set pieces and all the wild and wacky characters and everyone is over the top. Yeah, I think that was probably the closest. That's probably the closest thing that I could compare this to. I know some people said something about Thor: Love and Thunder where it had that similar vibe to it. I've never seen that movie, so I couldn't really tell you. I couldn't draw a comparison between the two. I guess just looking at posters and stuff like that, I guess is really like kind of those loud, boisterous colors. Um, Lots of sexual innuendos in the movie, especially with the Fisto character. They had lots of fisting jokes, and then they even did one with him and Ram Man. And I'll let you find that out on your own. And it was just I thought that was kind of weird because I not weird, but I just thought it was like, okay, I think that this movie was rated like PG-13 or something like that. So they're making all like these kind of like very adult jokes. And sure, kids will get it. Kids probably know more than the adults nowadays, for crying out loud. But there's lots of stuff like that. A little bit of profanity. So if you're bringing your kid to it or younger people, then I would keep that in mind. If that's something that you really are trying to keep them away from, then there was a little bit of salty language, but not too much. And yeah, there was a couple of times in the movie where I legit I started like getting all like, you get that kind of like you don't really like outwardly like scream or holler or anything like that. I just kind of get all like choked up and start getting all puffed up in the chest and starting to feel all sorts of joyful and whatnot. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Short of getting goosebumps from it, I really there were parts of the movie that I really enjoyed. I think the cast did a great job. I think the movie overall was very well done, from the score to the set pieces to the plot and the dialogue. I thought it was really well done. I've heard that it's bombing at the theaters. I don't know why, but if you're a fan of He-Man, if you're a fan of Masters of the Universe, if you didn't like the thing that Kevin Smith did for Netflix, um, go out and check this movie out. It definitely gets my seal of approval. I thought it was great. I told a couple of people I thought it was great. I certainly would recommend it to anybody. It's a fun 2 hour ride. It's a nostalgia trip. And despite the fact that it may or may not do well at the box office, I think it's going to do well through either video on demand or probably Blu-ray and DVD sales. I think it's going to do well in that regard, but it's definitely something I would recommend, especially if you're a fan. It's not going to disappoint you. I know there was some discussion with various people, which is a point I was making earlier, is it whether it was woke or not or any of that stuff. It's not. It's not woke. It's not a commentary on toxic masculinity. It's not some like uber Chad freaking based MAGA, and none of that. It's none of that stuff. There's no agenda here with this movie. The only agenda they have with this movie, I think, was to go out and make a fun movie which is something that Hollywood seriously needs to do more and more of. I know they put out a bunch of. I've seen people talking about. There's a couple other movies I wanted to check out. The two horror ones, Obsession and maybe Backrooms, and I guess they came from YouTube people, but I don't know. The Obsession one looks kind of cool, but that one's doing really well. And then you get movies that are like these massive budget spectaculars like the Star Wars one, and they also that one also bombed. But I'm not really a huge modern Star Wars guy, so I don't really care too much about any of that. But yeah, long story short, go check out Masters of the Universe. It was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I think overall there was probably like 20 people in the theater. I got to see it in the afternoon, so I spent like less than $10 to watch it. So that was very cool. And then I went across the street and there was a place that I could buy picture frames. So I don't know if you noticed it in the corner there. I got my I Hate God tour poster framed up. I got my acid bath tour poster from last year. I got that framed up right in front of me. And I tried to get a couple other things framed up, but they didn't have the right sizes. And I just kind of chuckled to myself. Fun story on the way out here. I have to be the most Louisiana metal person that's not from Louisiana because look and hear how this scene narrates. I've got the I Hate God hat, the Soylent Green shirt. I go into a freaking Michael's, which is a like a arts and crafts type of place, and I go there to frame up my Acid Bath tour poster, my I Hate God tour poster, my signed Crowbar photo, and my Goat Whore poster, my album cover poster from Blood for the Master. So it was I didn't even think about it as I was doing it, but then I thought about it afterwards. I was like, I am the most Louisiana metal mother effer that you're ever going to meet that's not from Louisiana and doesn't play in a band or isn't affiliated with any of those bands from that Louisiana sludge metal, extreme metal scene. So it was just kind of funny. But yeah, man, one more time, go check out Masters of the Universe. I think you're going to enjoy it. I think if you're bringing any younger people with you, they'll enjoy it. You can fill them in on the lore and everything like that. And yeah, hopefully it does well enough to where they do continue with the story, because there were stay after the credits as always, because there are things that they do after the credits, after the main movie ends. They throw in little Easter eggs towards the tail end of everything. I missed one of them because I had to go take a wicked piss. So it was just like, okay, I know they're probably going to do one more thing, but I don't want my kidneys to rupture. So I got to get going, and I'll figure it out from there. But it kind of left it, the way the movie ended, it kind of tied that knot up, which was cool because I was kind of wondering how they were going to do that, because there were a couple of deaths in the movie that were surprising to me. So I thought that, oh wow, like they did that, huh? But that turned out to in some cases that turned out to not be the case. But anyhow, so this has been Dan. This has been Moonshine talking. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have and you're new here, go give the channel a like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Um, yeah, I got a album review that I'm going to do, and then I'm going to fire off something real quick on my phone. I just want to do I got a little unboxing that I want to do that you may or may not see this one before that one, but in the context of how I'm recording these things, that's what I'm doing. So whichever one I end up posting first, you'll know that was part of the deal. That's what I'm doing with the rest of my day. But for now, I'm going to go grab something to eat. I'm starving. And yeah, man, as always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact. Don't forget to breathe. Everybody have a good one. Take it easy. And yeah, man. Oh, crap. I got to add one more thing. They had a Dolph Lundgren cameo, which is very cool. They had a scene in the movie where Adam he's still on Earth, and he's like kind of like meandering through life and trying to figure his life out, and that was a lot of the movie too. Now I'm gonna get going again, but it was kind of like the whole theme of the movie, as far as the Adam He-Man character, was literally the hero's journey, like him trying to find his way in life, to become the man that he's supposed to be or that he thinks he's supposed to be. There was even this whole like little subtext of him with his issues trying to live up to his dad's expectations. So there was a lot of stuff like that going on. But yeah, they had a Dolph Lundgren appearance in the movie. He was in the gym with Adam talking to him, and he even did a good journey. And that's kind of what reminded me. I was trying to think of a nice, cool little He-Man related sign off here. So I guess everybody have a good journey. I guess that's the best way to do it. So anyhow, take it easy, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later.